All right, kindergarten, today we're going to be making some ladybugs. You're going to have a few different papers. You're going to have your white paper, 2 different green papers, a brown paper, and some small red papers. So what we're going to do is we're going to make our ground first. So this is going to kind of be our dirt. If you can see, it's exactly as wide as my paper is. Do you see that? If I turn it this way, it's not as wide as my paper. So we want our paper to be this way. And then I'm going to draw a line. I'll try to draw it with Sharpie, but you might not be able to see it on the video. But I'm going to just draw a wavy line like that. I made mine pretty wavy. You don't have to make yours as wavy as mine, but we're going to make a wavy line. Then we're going to cut that out. We always want our pencil lines to be on the back, so I'm going to make sure to put my glue on the same side that I drew my pencil line on. For me, it's my Sharpie line. And I'm just going to do dot, dot, not a lot. Making sure to get my edges. When you're gluing down something big like this, it's important to get the edges. So I'm just kind of going around the edge, just like that, right? Now this is the hard part. This is where you kind of have to get these corners lined up with these corners. So I'm going to kind of start with one corner and kind of set it in one corner. And then once you get one, the other one goes down pretty easy. So I'm making sure the edges of my papers stop at the same spot. And then I'm just going to press it down. Okay? There we go. And since we're using liquid glue, if it's not lined up exactly, you can kind of move it around a little bit till you've got it where you want it. Okay, now we need to make our grasses. So with our scissors, we're gonna cut some long skinny pieces out of these green papers. Make sure you're making them skinny because we want them to look like grass. So I've got about 4, maybe I'll do one more. So I might not use all my paper. I made about 5. Maybe I'll do about 4 or 5 out of my light green. All right, so you can see those are pretty skinny. Now we need to glue them down for our grass. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take one of my pieces. I'm going to take that glue bottle and I'm going to put just tiny little dots. We want to make sure they're tiny because we don't want the glue to ooze out all over the paper. You can see I didn't put a whole bunch, I just put one every once in a while down that line, and then I want this to go long and tall on my paper. Do kind of like the same thing when we were lining up our corners, but now all we have to do is line up our edges. So I want that grass to start at the bottom of my paper, and I want it to stop at the top of my paper. There we go. Now we're gonna fill up our whole paper with grass. Now they don't have to just be going straight up and down. You can make them kind of cross over each other. Okay guys, so now we need to make our ladybugs. We have our squares right here, and if you remember, we learned how to cut circles out of squares by just trimming off the corners. You just kind of curve off those corners. And then if you have any lump bumps left, you just kind of cut those off. Right? And then you have a circle. Or some people still have a hard time with curving off the corners. If you still have a hard time with making that curve, you can just make straight lines. Straight, straight, straight to get those corners off. Now it almost kind of looks like a stop sign, but now you can see it has a whole bunch of littler corners. So now I'm going to cut off just the littler corners with just straight lines. But you can see I'm making lots smaller little cuts because they're only little tiny corners now. And there we go, I've got a circle again. So if you are good at curving off your corners, you can do it this way. If you aren't really good at curving, you can just do straight lines, right? So I'm gonna cut out a few more of these circles for some ladybugs. Okay, I'll show you one more time. So if you want to do the curve, you can curve off one corner, curve off the next corner, curve off the next corner, and curve off the next corner. And again, if you have any lumps or bumps, cut those off. And there you go, you've got a circle. If you can't do the curves, straight line, straight line, straight line, straight line. We got our stop sign. Now we need to cut those little tiny corners with straight lines. All right, my friends. Then we just need a couple dots of glue under each one, and we're gonna add them to our grass. All right, kindergarten, the last step for our ladybugs is to add their details. Ladybugs have spots, they have legs, they have antennas. So what you're gonna do is you need to draw a straight line across them like that. They can be all facing different directions, so your lines don't all have to be going the same way. You can give them some polka dots on their back. All right, then we need to add their little heads. So where the line points, that's where you put their head. So the line points to their head, and I'm just gonna make a little rainbow line, a little curved line right at the top of that line. I don't know if you can see that. It's almost like the letter C. If I turn it this way, it's almost like the letter C. The line is pointing to his head, and then I'm just gonna color that in. And then what they need is little tiny antennas coming out the top. So they've got a curved line for their head. Color it in. And then little antennas sticking out the top. Remember that line that you drew on their back, that points to where their head goes. And little curved lines for antennas. This line is pointing this way, so his head is going to come off this way. Okay, last thing our little ladybugs need are legs. They need little legs so they can crawl up the grass. So just out the side of their body, I'm just gonna give them about 4 or 5 legs on each side. All right, my friends, there are our finished ladybugs crawling up their grass.